All right, we're going to talk about the sack design. For the character that you're going to be using for the sack drop character uh, is one that is rather simple. You'll think of it as, if you will, two circles, right? Two circles, two ovals, and think about as the sack itself like two semi-inflated water balloons. So that means that instead of just being a circle, they're going to have a little bit of squash to them. So if I round out this bottom one here, kind of square it out a little bit, and I lay another one on top of it there, and it's going to have kind of a squattish feel. And you see how the bottom here, base contact kind of flattens out, and the bottom is a little bit flatter. So a little more squat, not quite perfect. They overlap a little bit, right? Because they're sort of laying one on top of the other. So again, you might think of it in terms of two circles, but then think about them as basically it's like semi-inflated water balloons that are just kind of squished together. Now with that, within this basic shape here, it's almost like a figure eight here without the center point, right? So if we have our character and we have our character's body and it comes like this, and again it comes out like this where it's sort of squashed and has this sort of squashed feel, kind of flattened out on the top and bottom, but much more rounded on the sides, left and right. Let's think about that as if there's maybe even a bit of skin, like this is a skin, right? And so let's go ahead and we're going to, on the top here, on the bottom, we're going to put a little tie off. So we're going to put a little skin on there and make this a little bit floppier. So I'm just going to really kind of flatten this part out, make this more rounded, make that more rounded, really flatten that part out right there. So it looks like it's sitting on the ground. So I'm going to change my color here so you can see that. So if this is the top part, this becomes the left, this becomes the right, like the left here. And you notice when I get to the ground, it stops, right, and then it's flatter. It's flatter over there, right? We don't have, again, we do not have this kind of circle where it's fully rounded, or even this one where it's very rounded. It comes down the base here and it's flattened out. So you want to have it look like that weight that's inside the sack is sitting on the ground. Now, that being said, we do want to go ahead and design what we call the tie-offs. So if we have a sack, it's going to have the little ties on the corners, right? And you could almost kind of figure those almost like little ears, right? But then we also have them coming out from the side, right? Coming from the bottom here. They almost look like little like penguin feet or something, right? They just sort of come out the side. They're very flat. They really rarely work like feet, but they have that sort of look. Now, to give it some depth, certainly we've already started by putting the base here and putting the feet, look, they're coming out from behind. What you do not want to do, okay, what you do not want to do is this. That does not create depth. That means it's just sitting there. If I do the same thing on the top here, see, do not do this. Do not do this. You want to have it so it looks like it's overlapping. Notice how it looks like that tie off is coming from around the side of the girth of that sack. Okay, so it looks like it's sort of part on there. The other thing you can do is you can add a little bit of a curve right here, like on the belly. That's a nice little thing to do right there. Now, let's talk about the design of the sack itself. What I'm going to have you do is do a couple of these different sacks. So if we just go ahead and design them. So let me go ahead and round out, kind of squat that out. Do another one here, make it kind of squat. Go, flatten out that base. Sort of my base design. And so I'm going to do this 4 times. And that's what I want you to do too. You're going to follow, again, you're following along with me on this video. And you're going to do this 4 times across here. And we're sort of, again, doing this sack. And as we do our sack, we're leaving a little bit of space in between, working right across the page. All right, so I'll go ahead here, do another one. And once you've got all 4 of them done, I've kind of rounded them out, rounded out the sides, flattened the bottom and the top there, right? Kind of has that weight, that feeling that there's an inner thickness, or there's grain, there's coal, there's coin, there's something in there that has weight to it. So it's not just a, like I said, perky little circle like this, or like this. So now we got some weight in there. So what we want to do is on these 4, you're going to design some weight to the character, some costuming. So if I was to go ahead and put this on here, let's say if I put one where I put the tie off up above, and then maybe I put the other one and it's sort of flapped over like a little bunny ear, right? That's something that can be done. right? Maybe perhaps here I've got the feet coming out, right, for my sack. Got that one there. But on the middle part here, maybe I want to put a patch on there. So I'll put a simple little patch like this and keep it really simple. Maybe 1 or 2 stitches per side, and that's about it. Keep it very, very simple, okay? Let's try another one here. Let's go ahead. Maybe this time I'll put maybe sort of a larger tie off on there. There's kind of little, these sort of thicker, wider ones here. And same thing coming off the bottom here. And again, they're coming out the sides. And on this one here, maybe perhaps I accentuate the curvature of the object. So I'm going to go ahead and impose a slight curve there. So I bring one in from the top. I'll bring in that belly, and then I'll bring it just a little curve in, sort of following that curve, and a little curve out, and a little curve back in again. See that? So it basically just gives me a little bit of weight and depth and helps to define the front of that sack. Now let's go try another one here. Let's say on this one here, let's go ahead here. I'm going to do a tie off on this one, tie off on this one, and the one here, one there. Let's all tie off. And on this one, perhaps, let's see. We can go ahead. Let's put that belly on there. But this time I'll just put the belly, and I'll put this little curve here and there. So we just have that. We don't not even put the top and bottom part in, but it still gives some depth, and it gives a little bit of character to the front. Maybe on the side here, we can go ahead and put a big scar, right? But then you have to sort of again put a few of those little ties and leave that alone, right? What you want to avoid is when you're designing these characters, try not to put text on there. Text, is you can do that in animation. You can put text on things certainly, but it becomes harder to animate. And right now for this project, I want you guys just to focus on the physicality of the body. So far with our gravity tests, you've been doing everything that has been just sort of, if you will, a ball and a leaf, right? But this is where you really sort of think about this character as an actual character that is thinking and is trying to get somewhere. It has a motivational attitude to it. So it's the first time you're going to be putting some physical attributes to the character that are emoting emotion or anthropomorphizing emotion into this character. So let's go ahead and maybe on here I'll put I can put a bigger patch on there. Maybe I'll put just a big one right here on the belly, and I'm going to follow the curvature of that belly right there. Just kind of big one right there, right? And then maybe I'll put a circle in the middle of it, and that's it. Just kind of leave it as such. Okay, a couple of different ones. Now I will go ahead and throw in 2 more at the top here. And what I'm going to show you here is if you wanted to do something like this, where say you wanted to make this the upper part of the sack is really small and the lower part really large. So let's go ahead and really widen that out a little bit. All right, looks a bit like a gourd or a pear in its shape. And from within this one though, let's go ahead and instead of on the ties here, we could go ahead and have, the little tie off on the feet here on either side. But let's say that maybe that sack was tied together in the center in one big knot. So in this case, then you kind of put a bump at the top, and then we put our tie off on top. And this one you kind of be rather larger because you figure there's going to be 2 parts of the sack coming down. And I'm going to go ahead and bend it right there so it looks like it's sort of coming out. And a bit sort of look a bit like a ponytail, doesn't it? Right? But a sack like this, what could a sack like this be for? Well, you might think of these as for rocks or rice or produce of some kind, maybe clothing. But this one, maybe that could be a sack of money, right? This could be a sack of money. So let's go ahead and maybe make it one more here. So I'll make that other one here for you. And I'm going to, again, make that pair. We'll extend that out quite a bit. And again, put that little bump on the top and go ahead and bring that out and back in again. See, that's like a little tie there. It's got some little personality there, right? And maybe I'll put a little bump on the top there, show us that weight, give myself the little tie-offs here at the base. So here we have the first 3 certainly again, this is just the basics. This one is showing it where we take it and we start to eventually round it out a little bit. But again, do not put tie-offs that end up with this sharp point on the corners. We want that to end up like it's appearing behind the thickness or the girth of the piece itself. So you can see is that I'm squaring it off here, giving a little bit of weight on the base, putting those in. Then on these other ones that you're going to be drawing, so again, you're following through and drawing with all these, is that we've got two here that are like money sacks, right? They have that heavier weight. They're more pear-shaped. They've got all that, certainly all the ducats, if you will, at the bottom of the sack here. And we've got two different kinds of tie-off, sort of one sort of flopping over, one sort of popping up, but like the two ends have been tied together. And these four down below are just basically the same sack, except for the fact that we changed the ears a little bit, and we've actually added some sort of decorative element to the surface of the sack. A patch, little cross stitch lines, and maybe a scar with a break, and maybe just a simple kind of label. There's nothing without any text, but just a simple geometric shape. Okay, so you have a couple of different ones here to do, and this is what your challenge is going to be, is to go through and do these as I've done them, and then I would like you to come up with 4 more on your own. 1, 2, 3, 4 more on your own. They can be a little variation of these. You can play with the idea of making the smaller head bigger body. You can play with having just a one tie-off on top, and or adding different kinds of adornment to your sack. Okay, so each one's going to be a little bit different. Then what's going to happen is you're going to come back afterwards, and once I've looked at them, okay, you're going to upload these onto the discussion board. And once I've looked at them, we'll say, okay, go ahead and let's do this one or this one. Okay, so when you post on the discussion board, I want you to be able to tell me which one that you think is the one that you'd like to use for the sack drop project. Okay, so if you have one you like, go ahead and mark it. You can put a star, put a little circle there, put a little arrow that says this one, but that'll be the one that you'll use for your design. Okay, so again, your job here is to draw these as I've drawn them, and then to go ahead and do 4 more at the bottom after you've done these, so that way you've gone through and you've practiced doing this process. And then for the last 4, play with mix and matching different types of aspects of the different types of design elements and make those ones. Go ahead and pick the one that you like the best, mark it on there, and then write it or type it into your response when you upload this photo onto the discussion board. Okay, we'll talk. I'll give you feedback, and if it looks like, yes, I agree that the one that you picked looks the best, then we'll go ahead and we'll start working on our sack character page. Okay, our character page. But we'll talk about that next. So have fun with this, and we'll see you soon.